Moff Gideon has been busy in the shadows this season working on a plan so secret even the Empire doesn't know about it.
Long live the Empire!
Brace yourselves guys, because this could be huge. However, it would also be the worst thing to happen to the galaxy since Order 66.
I will create an army that will bring order to the galaxy.
I'll start by explaining what Gideon's vision actually is, why he's going behind the Empire's back, and how devastating it would be if he pulls it off. You see, to really understand what's going on here, we need to kick things off at the beginning and reevaluate Moff Gideon and what we know so far. We know he's an Imperial warlord and he was a Moff of the Outer Rim, and at this point in time in episode 1, we thought the Empire was shattered into groups and spread across the galaxy, pretty similar to how the Mandalorians are in the show. We know that Moff Gideon had possession of the Darksaber and he actually wanted to wield it himself. It wasn't just a trophy piece, and we'll come on to why that could be in a moment. We know he was partly responsible for the destruction of Mandalore in the first place, and we was led to believe that the Imperial remnants in the galaxy were acting separately, largely dysfunctional, disorganized, and that the Grogu mission would eventually lead to Snoke and Palpatine's return, and that Gideon and his plans would be the catalyst for that. And the reason that Gideon was doing this perhaps was because he wanted to be at a higher favour, at a higher ranking or higher station once the Empire is re-established in the galaxy. Now when season 2 rolls around, we thought we saw the end of Gideon. We thought he'd played his greatest card, which was the Dark Troopers, and of course that failed thanks to the help of Luke Skywalker, and Gideon was left defeated and captured by the New Republic. However, in the build up to season 3, we then learned that the actor Giancarlo Esposito is back for season 3, and that means Moff Gideon will be returning as well. There was rumours early on in the show about his escape from New Republic capture, and when suspicions were raised by Carson Teva of the pirate attack on Navarro being sanctioned by Imperial remnants. It's then confirmed that Gideon has escaped the prison transport he was extracted, and a shard of Beskar alloy was left behind embedded into the ship wall, which also led us to believe that perhaps Mandalorians were responsible for breaking Gideon out. However, in episode 7, all of this is revealed and Gideon finally returns on screen, stronger than ever before I may add, and we also learned that the Empire isn't actually as scattered as we thought. They have the Shadow Council established. It's a way for them to keep organised and keep structure, working in the shadows, gaining resources, amassing territory, waiting for the moment to make their re-emergence into the galaxy. And the Imperial plans are in motion and largely on track it seems. However, Gideon is keeping a secret even from the Empire. You see, he's not working alongside the Empire, he's actually what we could say is working ahead of them. We know the Empire has a plan and we've seen the outcome of that plan in the sequel trilogy, and they think that Gideon is on board for this, but he's actually not. They think he's also amassing resources, gaining territory for the Empire, Navarro, Mandalore, and also keeping himself within the shadows until the time is right for the greater Imperial return. And to be fair, he is actually doing this, but he's not doing it for the rest of the Empire. He's very much doing it for himself under the name of the Empire. And what's more, he's actually siphoning resources from the rest of the Empire, which we saw in episode 7 with the Praetorian Guards and the TIE bombers. He's using what's left from the old to bring a new version of his order to the galaxy. The Empire is using Pershing's research in cloning to create Snoke or resurrect the Empire, what way you want to look at it, essentially a Force-sensitive being to lead them once again. Now, Gideon is very good at seeing the positives and negatives from what's come before and what's transpiring around him, and he uses Pershing's research secretly for himself. And his goal here is to create his own clone army. You see, the whole idea of a Force-sensitive Emperor and everyone around him not being Force-sensitive, apart from Darth Vader, didn't work last time, so why would it work this time? After all, Luke Skywalker is still out there in the galaxy, and if he defeated him once, he could defeat him again if they use the same game plan. Gideon wants to create his own clone army. Now, the clone army of old, the first time around we saw them, were effective. They did achieve exactly what Palpatine wanted them to, and that was to take control of the galaxy and largely eliminate their enemies. Instead, with these new clones, they would be engineered to be loyal to Gideon rather than to Palpatine. And to take things one step further than that, with Gideon looking at what works so well with other societies in the past, he wants to make them Force sensitive, and he wants to cover them in Beskar armor. Two of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, the Jedi and the Mandalorians, combined into one, into a clone army that's loyal to Gideon, taking the best of his enemies and harnessing it for himself. And you might be forgiven in thinking that this is largely a new reveal that came around in season 3 of The Mandalorian, but that's not actually the case. You see, we saw that clone on Navarro and we were led to believe it was Snoke, and apparently there was even a Snoke theme played subtly in the background. that was actually an experiment for Gideon's Force-sensitive clone army. That was an early stage experiment, and he was actually questioned on this by an Imperial officer during the Shadow Council meeting that we saw in episode 7, which he flat out denied. Now these plans, it shows us, have been long in motion, and this was actually Gideon's end goal, and the Dark Troopers were just a part of it. As the Empire wants to restore the old in the galaxy, Gideon very much now is looking to bring in something new. And you can see his angle here in the Shadow Council meeting, where he is largely dismissing Thrawn's return and saying perhaps they should look to new leadership, meaning himself. If they can forget their ideas and then get on board with his ideas, they can then work together. If not, then Gideon's going to work without him. In episode 7, we actually see Gideon walk past numerous cloning tanks on the way to the council meeting. And if you look at the shape of these clones in the tanks, although not very clear, they're much more formed than what we saw on Navarro, which leads me to believe that Gideon has done it. He's achieved the almost impossible feat of cloning Force sensitives. They look way more developed than they did previously, and that could be the reason why he's had Elia Kane wipe Pershing's memory to stop the rest of the Empire creating a threat to his plans in bringing back Palpatine or potentially another super powerful Force sensitive to take control. Now, all of Gideon's cloning plans can be one thing, but there's actually two parts to this theory. There's two parts here to Gideon's plan. You see, he does idolize the Mandalorians in a strange way. I think he likes the structure, the materials they possess, how powerful they are when they're united. He wants all of it, and this could be part of the reason why he actually wants the Darksaber. He tells Bo to inform the other Mandos the planet is his, and I think that's in an attempt for some of them to follow him. Otherwise, why would he care for them to realise the planet's now his? He would just have them all killed anyway. I think Gideon would be willing to accept Mandalorians under his rule, as they are literally the very thing he's aiming to copy. And I think he has actually achieved some of this in some respect. I think the survivors we met in episode 7 are working for Gideon already. I think they are the spies that the title of the episode refers to. And now, as some of the survivors, some of the sick survivors have been taken up to the fleet, they've also now infiltrated the fleet from within, just pretending to be sick. It seems to me like Gideon wants to establish his new empire based around Mandalore due to the planet's resources, ruling like a Mandalorian leader with the Darksaber, in command of the Force-sensitive clone army covered in Beskar, which of course would then be manufactured on Mandalore. Now, it is ambitious, but if he pulls it off, I think he's completely taken control of the galaxy. The Empire, the New Republic, and the Mandalorians wouldn't stand a chance against him. He would have already outdone anything the Empire would have accomplished in the time they were in charge. Just imagine Order 66, but the clones were Force-sensitive themselves and were in Beskar. No one would stand a shred of chance against them. Just imagine these clones being fitted with a standard issue blaster and an Imperial issue saber, or something similar to wield in a similar kind of fashion. And now where this is all going to end up is a bit cloudy at the moment, but I will say, as this was Gideon's plan the entire time, I strongly think these clones will enter the galaxy. They've been setting it up for too long for it to not come to fruition. However, I do think Gideon is going to be killed this season, and potentially the clones with him, or a large amount of the clones with him. But the research that they've done, the research they've completed, will remain in the galaxy somewhere, only to be picked up by the wrong hands yet again. Perhaps that could be what the recently announced movie set 15 years after episode 9 is really going to be about. Maybe someone gets these plans and tries to put them into action 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker. But as for the Mandalorian going forward, I think the main antagonist going forwards in the Ahsoka show and the shows that follow after that, the real big bad is going to turn out to be Thrawn. He has his own plans for the galaxy, and eventually the other side of the Empire's efforts will pay off with the emergence of Snoke. So whatever Gideon is planning here isn't going to be that successful, but it doesn't necessarily mean it isn't going to be in the future. And of course, what he's doing at this point in time could lead to a lot of tragic deaths and casualties. Guys, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like, it's massively appreciated. I'll catch you in the next one. This is the way.